So I ended up turning to music. Music is a incredibly powerful tool when you're looking to rewire the brain and onboard language um, in a different way than just through speech. So I started singing, and my children, who were 14, 17, and 18 at the time, were so happy that I was singing all the time. By the way, that's sarcasm. They were not. But um, it was this really pivotal moment of both seeing life through the eyes of the students that I served and a solution that isn't really used in mainstream education. We always think of music education as like secondary.
Me, Erica, with the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. So happy you're here today. I know I say it every day, and I'll continue to say it every day. If you keep showing up, I'm going to keep showing up. So welcome to our community. Today we're going to talk about how music is medicine and how one lady, super smart lady, is working on bridging the gap in early language development. We see it everywhere. There's nowhere that you can escape technology. It's here to stay. And you even see it with young children. I'm sure the last time you went out to a restaurant, you saw a child who had a tablet at the table. As screens become a staple of daily life, many 3-year-olds in the US are spending 3 to 4 hours a day engaged with devices. They're potentially losing out on so much vital language and experiences. And this trend can really result in a loss of children for 1,500 words a day. That's significant. And that's where this big gap comes in. It's an essential skill that children need, like phonetic awareness and, all of the skills that they need for pre-reading before they enter kindergarten. And you, as a child care owner or director, need to understand and address this issue because it's critical for our children. And a part of our jobs is making sure that our children are ready to learn. And child development is so important. And we are the educators who work with families. So we have to figure out how we can make technology, because it's here to stay, work with what we know is best practice. And so you're going to join us today as we unpack all of this screen time, what it means, how we can use it for good to foster rich language. So, welcome to the show, Emily.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm fantastic. So, Emily and I met at the Flacy conference last week in Florida, and we just immediately hit it off. She had the coolest little table with the coolest little dragons, and everybody was so interested in these dragons. And so I thought we would bring it to the masses here on the one and only Child Care Director's Chair podcast.
Absolutely. I think we bonded the moment I met you and your sister, and I was like, why are people going nuts over these dragons? And you were like, because they're cute. And I was like, they're just a dragon.
So Emily, tell folks a little bit about yourself and how you got to this place where you've created this amazing little dragon.
Well, thank you. And thank you for that really awesome intro. It's really important that we highlight this growing concern about passive screen time consumption and really just the effects of this on brain development as it stands today. I had a unique experience. I was a special education teacher for I've been a special education teacher for about 25 years. But about 8 years ago, I experienced a really traumatic event in the classroom. I was assaulted and I lost my ability to talk for about a year and a half. I had some pretty severe, what they call aphasia. And it left me with the inability to put thoughts into words. So I couldn't get my needs met. I couldn't communicate with the world around me. My behavior started changing because I couldn't use my own vocabulary, my own voice. Um, so I was kind of in survival mode for about that first year until I had to come to terms with the fact that it wasn't getting any better. And I kind of started a quest of like how I was going to use alternative methods of therapies to get my voice back. So I ended up turning to music. Music is a incredibly powerful tool when you're looking to rewire the brain and onboard language um, in a different way than just through speech. So I started singing, and my children, who were 14, 17, and 18 at the time, were so happy that I was singing all the time. By the way, that's sarcasm. They were not. But um, it was this really pivotal moment of both seeing life through the eyes of the students that I served and a solution that isn't really used in mainstream education. We always think of music education as like secondary, or music therapy as secondary, or speech language pathology as an intervention. And the reality is, with children spending so much time in front of screens right now, it is primary in how we teach and how we use it as the vehicle to get language on board faster in the brain. So I ended up getting a master's in this, studying all of these pieces, what we call inclusive music, burying the therapeutic practices underneath the music and underneath the curriculum. So what you do at the surface as a teacher in the classroom looks very similar to what you're already doing. It's kind of just an or to your day, not an and. And then it targets those language milestones that we know now are not developing at the same rate that they were because of so much passive screen time consumption. So we specifically go in as teachers and we teach to the sounds, but we do it through music. And then we couple that up with a second arm that goes into the house. So we're trying to leverage that same screen that parents are using to often keep their children quiet. We're using that to bridge what's happening in the classroom every day with the music that we're encouraging children to sing, but we're doing it through a game that picks up on the voice that parents and children use together. And it serves as this extension of classroom learning. It gives parents a way to still use the device that we know they're going to use, but in a way that is verbal. It promotes communication, it promotes play. And it doesn't keep children quiet. Now, we know we're not going to take the place of your favorite movies or your favorite streaming, but we do want to start carving out 15 minutes a day of joint play with that device so that children aren't thinking it's just something to entertain them, especially when they go then into, K-12. It's kind of a shock that the device is now being used as something different. So we kind of want to introduce it in a way that is more consistent with how it's being used later on.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Because I can tell you, if you're able to bring some of that learning aspect to it. So I have parents on the tour that will typically ask me, "Do you use technology here with children?"
Mhm,
And there are quite a few that are like, they don't want their children to use technology. And then you
mhm,
have the opposite where they
mhm,
use it heavily. So this could be somewhere in the middle to really work with both types of views when it comes to
mhm.
parenting around technology for their children.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's we're at this crossroads, right? Where you've got some parents who are like, we don't want technology used with our children.
Hmm.
However, screens are ubiquitous. We have
Hmm.
phones with us. We wear screens on our wrists. There's televisions, monitors, you name it. There's screens in our
Yeah.
cars. There's screens everywhere. Um, so being purposeful about how you
Yeah.
introduce a screen is more important now than ever. Also, being aware that using screens without limits, using screens without purpose or thought is also damaging. It's it can't just be, a 0 and a 100. There has to be a place in the middle.
Mm.
And, fortunately, we do have the attention now of some individuals that are ex- they are in our nation, the Surgeon General, the advocacy groups that are working to say, hey, we didn't really test technology out on human beings before we rolled it out into the human
Mm,
race. It's here, but we're going to
mhm,
need some oversight. We're going to need someone to come in and say, what are some things to look at when using technology that is appropriate? Our stance at Finnegan the Dragon is that all teaching birth to six needs to take place offline, that the screen should really only reinforce what you've done offline. So those
mhm.
songs that go back and forth, that toggle between offline and online, really are just giving parents an immediate engagement access point to what's going on in the classroom. Because how many times do you get asked by parents, what songs are you singing with the kids? Right? I want
Not
to
a
sing with.
lot.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, you're one. I think that was the number one thing that teachers were saying at the conference. They were like, we get parents asking us all the time, what are you singing with our kids? They're singing this song. I'd really love to sing along with them. And it's an easy access point to reinforce what you're doing throughout the
Sure.
day. Yeah.
Well, and in fairness, I'm not a teacher and I'm not in a classroom. So
Uh,
most people, when they come to the office, they're not asking me about the songs. But yeah, I mean, it could be very true, on the teacher level that, that could be very true. Or they might make a comment and say, hey, you guys must sing Wheels on the Bus because they sing it in the back of the car all the time. I've
yeah.
heard those types of statements.
Yeah.
Um, so how should childcare centers prioritize addressing the screen time concerns in their programs? What's your advice there?
Well, I I'm old. I'm an old
Yeah, me
person.
too.
I can say this now, and I
Mhm,
and I say it with pride because having age under my belt gives me the foresight to say I've seen abstinence-based programs come and go. The moment that
mhm,
you say always or never is the moment that a program's going to fail. And we've seen that with really almost every program that's rolled out. Just Say No, Dare, abstinence based programs when it comes to other things, those fail because they really don't address the root cause. They don't address the root
mhm,
of the problem, which is we've really changed environments in the home in the last 50 years. We don't function the same way
mhm.
we used to function in the home. Kids aren't outside playing, with neighbor kids
Yeah,
unattended. We just don't live the same way. Screens have
yeah.
become this part of our lives because we've changed things. So the first thing we have to do is have a conversation about what does that change look like and how does that affect the body. Information is the most powerful tool when you're talking about something that is creating when it's creating problems. So if you educate people on the types of screen products that are more beneficial to their child and less beneficial, um, that's going to be number one. Number two will be having a conversation that doesn't shame parents for using the screen or shame them for being
Mhm.
scared of the screen and not wanting to use it. Um,
Sure.
it's definitely y- y- we're living in the world of unknowns. We just don't know. But having a conversation about word delays that happen because of screen use, not just a child's screen use, but yours. Communication, um, just basic communication activities that you can do outside of song with your child. And also, I would say not just monitoring a child's use of the screen, but your own. Like, where are the screens in your house? Do you put them away? Are there moments when you have them available? Are there moments when you don't have them available? And putting some boundaries around them. And that's I think the biggest piece of this conversation
Mhm.
is just using discernment, having some education around what it's doing to your child's development, and then also coming up with like a reasonable plan.
Okay. So, tell us a little bit about how your program helps children with language.
So language is taking the hardest hit with screen time because to acquire speech And well, let's talk about language first. As a special
Sure.
education teacher, I have been corrected many times by speech language pathologists, and it's really important to understand that there are buckets to this. Speech, that's your articulation or your sounds. Yeah, there's words, that's your vocabulary, language, and then the bucket of communication. You and I exchanging back and forth. I think people hear speech and they're like, well, he can talk or she can talk, so it's fine. It's more than just that.
Mm,
Phonological and phonemic awareness are these pieces that are integrated into speech, language, and communication. It's more than just can you say something, it's can you remember something? Can you retrieve it and use it appropriately, a word or a sound? Are you working on developmental pieces that are too difficult for you? You know, are we working on sounds that are too difficult, or are we working on sounds that are too easy? Finding some markers in there and having something that guides childcare providers that's typically, those types of pieces of information are typically housed in therapeutic settings. They aren't really
mm,
available to the public um, because we say, typically therapists would come in and do that. Well, if a therapist is coming in, the problem is very, very large right now. In fact, the CDC lowered benchmarks in 2023 because
mm.
so many children were delayed. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't be something that's can be heaved upon their shoulders alone. Everyone has to take, their part in this.
Mhm,
But I would say that our program starts with addressing those milestones and looking at, you know, our our children being exposed to the appropriate number of phonemes in the language. Are we expressly teaching those to children so that they can hear them, memorize them, use them, um, and doing so in a way that's still child-led, play-based, and not that direct instruction. We call ourselves indirect instructional teaching methods. You don't have to sing your songs and play your games at story time or around a circle where everyone is looking at the teacher and you're doing exactly what
mm,
they're doing. You can do it side by side. You can do it in unstructured settings. You could be doing this during transitional times. We want to make our
mm.
curriculum so that it hits the niches of life, not necessarily it's a concert that you're putting on at circle time singing at children, right?
Yeah,
It's about engagement. It's
yeah,
about getting them to sing. It's about getting them to use their motor
yeah.
skills.
I'm
Yeah.
s I'm smiling and laughing because as you said, transitions, I was thinking, what a marvelous time to use music to gain attention while people are moving, people are
Yeah.
active, moving from one place to another.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a great place to use music for sure.
Yeah. It's, when I was teaching in a social communication classroom, we used music for everything. We used it for staggered releases, for lining up. We used it for cleaning the
Mm,
classroom. We used it for getting ready to go home. Anytime there was something where chaos could break out at any point.
mhm,
We use music to kind of keep things tight because
yeah,
our students in that classroom really struggled with using basic language skills. So, excuse me, please, thank you, or I need to get this weren't going to come naturally. So, we really wanted to avoid any type of you know, freeway jam by always having a song that kept the beat going, that moved children along at kind of a steady pace and allowed them to sing along if they or when they were ready.
yeah. So what tips do you have for maybe the teachers that might be listening on how they can help support the phenomes and the things that you're talking about here.
Yeah, I think that, we're going to be offering some online training sessions to help teachers understand even what this is because um, I hear teachers often say phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and
Mhm.
phonics interchangeably. And those are three very different
Hey,
things.
I know.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't want to
Yep.
mess it up.
So I think the first part is like taking part in any workshops that you can get into that are free to help you understand it before you try to apply
Mhm.
it. We talk about the big five. We talk about the big five of phonological awareness. We talk about the big five of phonemic awareness. That's really kind of housed under phonological awareness. And then the big five of literacy, how you can use these other elements to support that first stage or two, which is phonemic awareness and phonics in literacy. Phonics is letters, everything else is just sound. Um, we also get a lot of questions about dual language learners, and really wanting to honor the language spoken in the home, which we absolutely support that 100%. But we also know that English is a very complicated language that has a high number of
Mm-hmm.
phonemes. So if you were to compare this to Spanish, Spanish has about 26, and English has 44. Right there, you're at a deficit of 20 phonemes that you may need exposure to before you go into kindergarten if reading in English
Mm-hmm.
is going to be something expected of you. So we're
Yeah.
trying to explain all of this, but we do it in a world full of dragons and make believe and song, because some of that heavy lifting for planning is just, it's too much when you're in the classroom. When you're in the grind of having to like get the snacks ready, get your staff going, like all that, that's just too much. You can't be doing both the planning at this level and that type of work. So we've taken, these really high interventions that we use, K1, 2, and made them play based. And so that's, I think the first thing is kind of understanding the phonological stuff. And then the second thing is, how can you incorporate just some of the basics to shift your focus and your gaze from letters to sounds, from random themes per month, maybe holidays, to thematic things that could align with sound and sound awareness.
Okay. Um, what do you think people should know on an admin level, or how can they support their staff? So you mentioned some PD.
Yeah.
Are there other ideas that you have on how the childcare owners can really support their staff around or their parents?
Yeah. I think the first thing is to, the first thing I would do as someone like, I guess, running the classroom is take a look at the current curriculum that you're looking or you're using in your classroom,
Mhm.
and see about doing modifications of any kind to incorporate more sound around what's already there. No one loves to
Mhm.
add anything in to their staff. I mean, no one loves to retrain their
Sure.
staff on something new. I'd rather stick a hot poker in my eye than have to retrain something with fidelity. That's the new F word, fidelity. Like, these are children. You need to be able to have fun, and you have to shift quick. So if things are requiring children to be silent too long in your curriculum, I would take a real hard look at that. If it's requiring your staff to make children sit for longer than maybe 10 to 15 minutes at a sec,
Yeah.
oh, you got to
Mm-mm.
modify,
Yeah.
modify, and give your staff a new set of goggles to start looking at things through sound and sound play. It doesn't have to be done in a structured way. It can be done honestly while you're sitting on the floor playing with the kids. Those are my favorite times of the day.
Mm. Yeah.
That it was I think it is for every teacher. It's not when you're trying to clean up and do your paperwork and get all that stuff, but those playful moments, that's when you can integrate stuff really easily. Even creating sensory bins that have onset sound, little items that are already in
Mm.
there. It doesn't have to just be a random theme. It can actually be based around a phoneme, and you can be focused on all of the different toys that are around the care center.
That's cool.
Make your
Yeah.
themes integrated in all of the areas. It doesn't have to be a structured, direct instruction moment. I think the didactic learning, I think that's what it's called.
So tell us a little bit more about your product. So if people are interested, are they able to buy it now? Like, what does that look like? Because I know you're doing some testing and stuff. So what does that
Yeah,
look
we
like if somebody's interested?
you can buy it now. We're definitely on the market.
Okay.
I think that, in the last 4 weeks, things have really changed. We got as we were talking about earlier, we got a big grant from the National Institute of Health, which is like huge. I love it. We're happy people
Congrats.
over here. Thank you. We are happy. So we're giving everything a makeover and a once over, and adding all sorts of, especially one of the big things in the product is no prep lessons. 10-minute lessons that are no prep, they're imaginative
Mm,
play, or they're phoneme based or sound based. So just play based lessons that require Zippo on the planning part. That was one of the big things we're going to be adding to it. But right now, yes, the program is pretty reasonably priced. It comes with a kit for the classroom. Some of the things are behind me. Um, a book, the plush, a sound chart, the phoneme cards, vocabulary cards, mirrors, things that you're going to want tools to be teaching to sound. It also comes with our LMS system, which has 140 sound-based lessons. It has 14 songs on it right now. Um, by the time the holidays roll around, it's probably going to have about 28, which I'm super excited about. Um, but it really gives teachers a lot of tools to be playing with sound in the classroom, and then it gives parents an online access code to download the game from Google Play or iOS. There's no link or additional app you have to get. You just have them download the game Finnegan Sings. You give them a code and they can play with their child the same songs you're singing in class.
okay. Um, is there anything you want to leave with the listeners before we wrap up that I didn't ask?
I think that, the biggest thing I hear from daycare owners right now is the concern of behavior, right?
Hmm.
Um, and as someone who dealt with a lot of really extreme behaviors, behavior is communication. It's that final bucket of language. If you're not approaching speech and language in your classroom, it's going to be really difficult to get to communication. It's really going to be difficult to get to literacy. So the root cause of a lot of the behaviors you're seeing, it is speech and language. It is communication. So if you can start down the path slowly of integrating this, you're going to be ahead of the curve, because the behaviors aren't going to go away. They will not just
Yeah.
extinguish on their own. You have to kind of get in there and um, adjust the way in which you approach children, so that you're having a more successful learning environment for everyone, teachers and students.
Awesome.
Mm.
Emily, thank you so much. Can you leave us with contact info, socials, website? Can you leave us
Yes,
with that information?
absolutely. You can contact me at emily@finneganthedragon.com. You can visit our website at finneganthedragon.com, soon to be singtoread.com. So you can look for that switch. It's a little more specific when we give what we
Hmm.
do in the title. And then you can also follow us on Instagram or Facebook. We're not huge social media people because we really spend a lot of time with other people's children, so we try to be kind of careful with that.
Sure.
But you can reach out to me at any of those platforms. I will contact you directly if you're looking for professional development for your staff. We'd be happy to arrange something. It seems to be the most important part of this is just the information.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think professional development is so, so important. What state are you in?
I'm in Oregon.
Oregon. Okay.
So
So
I'm
the
going to
whole
say
other side of the
professional
country.
development, past
Mm,
9 a.m. on the East Coast.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know. I woke some folks up this morning for sure. I forget
Yes,
that there's such time zone difference. I was in my office so early this morning and I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, it's 7 o'clock your time?
I know. I woke up to that and I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
am I
Woke
supposed
up
to
to
be?
Erica.
I love it. And then you're
Hey,
like, no, I'm a machine. I'll get you in, but I'm a machine.
that's That's correct. I am. So thank you so much for being a great guest. We wish you lots of luck on all this new work that you're doing. I really truly appreciate what you're doing for children and childcare centers and teachers. So for those of you who tuned in today, thank you as always. And remember, it's the small details that make a big impact on the success of your childcare business. Have a great day.